Hey everyone, this is Kerb, and I bring you another standard match. Today we have the all too familiar Rezael mirror here. Now this is definitely not the most painful mirror match that you're going to be seeing in standard, but I will say it is definitely not really the greatest considering how long and grindy these games are going to end up being. But we're actually hopping into the middle of a match here. Since I don't really have a way to, differentiate the two decks since they are literally the exact same deck, I guess we're just going to go ahead and call them the Akina player and the Hikari player. But anyways, we do have Akina going first, swinging in with just the Vanguard. Hikari actually ends up calling a Selgown behind the Vanguard, kind of pushing 2 damage there. It looks one of them being a heal. And then moving on to the grade 2 turn for Akina, we see him whiff off the Tranquila skill, so he is going to be calling it right there behind the Cadwalla. He's going to be swinging with both of his rear guards here, kind of interesting, using only one of the skills of the Cadwalla because I believe you only have 1 soul for it. Also, are you able to use them? I guess if you did have enough soul, you could use both of them. Do not forget that you do actually need to have like 4 units in order to use Cadwalla's skill. She's not just free. But anyways, swinging, we did push 1 damage with that other regard attack, so we're gonna be swinging in at with the Vanguard for 23 here, kind of just ensuring that our opponent is not going to want to pass this, although normally you probably wouldn't want to do that anyway. But anyways, gonna be using the Selgown here, adding 1 card, and then of course putting the other to the bottom of the deck. Selgown, of course, being the main reason that Rezael is as good as it really is. Anyways, going to be discarding a Twin Cast, which is an excellent discard for the ride deck there, and then revealing 3 cards, the Aerial Saves, the Valtrosa, and then of course the Vita in the hand in order to check the top 5 cards of the deck. We'll be able to call something from among them. So right now, just from what we can see, it's looking like there really isn't anything good, and looks like we are going to go ahead and say, nah, I'm not calling anything, and just call out the Tranquila straight away. So this is 2 Rezael players that have completely whiffed their top 5 off the Tranquila, which is, typically the more common grade 1 to actually see in Rezael. You don't really see Rezael's grade 1 being played that much anymore. We see a Valtrosa coming on down here. Not going to be putting anything to the bottom of the deck because I don't think we actually do have a target for that. I guess we could put the Twin Cast back, but I don't know why we would do that. Going to be finding the Nobiris off the top 5 there, just be calling it. So now we do have a very nice tri-lane here, including 2 boosted attacks. You may have noticed that we didn't actually proc the Selgown last turn. Not entirely sure if that's because we didn't, but honestly, like, not proccing the Selgown was definitely like a totally valid play there. You definitely did not need to use it, and leaving it there gives you a lot more pressure on this next turn. You do also now have more rear guards thanks to the Cadwalla and the Selgown being proc there. There's definitely some level of skill to playing this Rezael mirror. Theoretically, you could go for no Cadwallas or no Selgowns or you could just like not use those skills, is what I'm trying to say, to kind of deny your opponent's Selgowns, because unless they're playing orders, and if you have a full board and your opponent is not playing orders, then you can basically just deny their Selgown all game, assuming you manage to keep your board and you use your intercepts effectively. But anyways, we are seeing the Selgown here. We did see a heal trigger being the first card hit into the damage zone off that Vanguard swing with no triggers checked. Very unfortunate. It just means this Nobiris is going to swing in at the Cadwalla, which are obviously going to just like let it die because like we have 1 more attack. There's no point in wasting that much shield. Anyways, riding into the Rezael for the Akina player, we are going to be calling back the Selgown, and we do actually have a Maple in the drop zone, so that's going to allow us to get kind of just a free body, which is definitely very much appreciated in Rezael. One thing that the deck kind of does struggle with is you have noticed that a lot of the things get themselves off board as well, which is, it's fine and dandy, it gives you a lot of hand presence, but you can sometimes find yourself struggling to, rebuild that board with good units, considering like all of them disappear, particularly like during the main phase, like before you attack with the Rezael, because like obviously you have like really good call targets from the drop zone, but you don't always have the best call targets to call from hand a lot of the time. Anyways, using the Valtrosa, we are going to be seeing a Gabuelis being called. Just gonna be calling it over the Maple. Like that Maple, we got it for free, so just losing it doesn't actually like amount to anything. So looks like we're actually going to be proccing the Gabuella's skill there. Just checking the top card of the deck. Looks like we're going to be putting it on bottom, meaning Gabuella's is going to get an extra 5k power there, making that a pretty powerful swing. The 31 there, pretty much just all by itself without any extra boosts here. We are missing the booster behind the Vanguard, so this Rezael is probably not going to be hitting for that very much. As we swing in just the Valtrossa line here for 18, we can definitely block that with just that double intercept. Valtrossa is not really doing anything here, and you can always, reborn the Noberis. Although, it wouldn't be bad to keep it on board and use its skill next turn. But looks like we're going to go for that double intercept play there, just conserving the cards in hand. Swinging in with the Rezael for only 13, which is a pretty easily blocked attack here. Going to be calling back. It's going to be difficult deciding what we want to call back here because we do only have 2 damage currently. So it looks like we're just going to go for the second Salgown there, as well as the starter, just to make a kind of weakish line. Throwing down the 15k shield to make this a 2 to pass. We see a front trigger being flipped there on the second drive check there. So this normally 19k attack is going for 29, which is pretty powerful. We're just going to be taking that, not getting a defensive, and now we have to deal with this other attack, which is at 41, which is honestly really not worth blocking. So probably just going to be taking that, actually getting a heal trigger here, which is nice and all, but it would have been maybe a little bit better if we stayed at 4, because discarding that Gab to ride up into the Rezael means that we theoretically could have used the Gabuella's skill there, although it's definitely not the correct time for it, considering you kind of just want to save that for until you get to Vita. Going to be using the grade 2 skill, calling back the Noberis that we intercepted with. So we've got a attacker there, definitely not the greatest attacker until it gets called off a Rezael's skill, but a free draw is a free draw. It's also free soul, which the deck sometimes does need, especially with the inclusion of Cadwalla, who definitely eats away a lot at Rezael's soul. But we do also see the Aerial Sage there, so theoretically we have access to counter charge and a much better center line there. Although, with 3 damage and not really anything to use that counter blast on, probably not going to be using that Aerial Sage skill anytime soon. So looks like we're going straight to battle. Unfortunately, this Noberis is not going to be able to hit without a booster. I mean, you can always take down the grade 0 there, which is that's a play. But I'm also noticing that the Akina player decided not to use the Salgown, which is, definitely fine. It leaves it there for next turn. And also, I guess if you have enough cards in hand, you don't really need to use it all the time. Like I said, you do sometimes struggle with creating a board during the main phase. So looks like we're going to go ahead and start off with the Cadwalla swing in here. Swinging in at the Vanguard for 18. That is a little bit of an awkward number unless you play draws, so we don't have any intercept, so this is going to be an overguard if we do decide to guard it. But looks like we're going to opt to not guard it, just kind of bank on defensive there. And it's not really going to come through as we just do use the Cadwalla skill here, checking the top 3 cards of the deck. Not sure what we're going to be searching for here, but looks like we're just going to add a copy of the base Rezael, which we'll definitely need once we go into Vita next turn. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and swing in with that Vanguard. Looks like we're probably aiming to call, with grade 2 there, as well as a booster for Mr. Noberis there. At least that's what I would assume we're doing here. Although, if we call grade... Oh, it looks like we're going to be calling out the Gabuella's there. And then I guess what we can do here is call the starter so that Noberis actually hits. Although I'm not really sure what the play is here, because even if you do call grade 2 there, like that Cadwalla, she's not really going to be able to do much. She has to attack the Vanguard in order to actually use her skill, which is obviously not really going to do anything in this situation. But looks like we are actually going to be going for that play that I mentioned, the Gabuella's, Soul Blasting the 1 and then instantly shotgunning it to the bottom of the deck. And then it looks like we do hit a heal trigger here, healing down to 2 damage, going to give the power to that Noberis there. And then for our second second check, it's just going to be another copy of Vita. And then that second damage is going to end up being an over trigger, so that just completely nullifies the rest of this turn. Now, it's not the end of the world because we do actually have some rear guards to swing in, so we're going to go and swing in the 18, and I believe this should be at 26 at the other 2 units. Like I said, you know, removing Rezael's board, wherever they leave, is definitely not the end of the world, but, you know, at the same time, you kind of just put his gab in his drop zone for him. But let's be honest, there was not really going to be any problem with, you know, Rezael doing that themselves. So riding into the Vita, going to be activating that Persona Ride. So we're looking at our very first, like, you know, burst turn. This is where everything really is going to start coming together, and power lines are going to be insane this turn. Looks like we're actually going to be soul blasting out our Rezael in order to proc the divine skill for 1. At the same time, almost forgetting to call back the maple. Probably not going to matter that much in the long run, but we're shuffling in that 1 critical trigger, which is, honestly, I don't think you needed to do that. Like, if we're being honest, you're at 3 damage. Are you really at risk to dying to a Vita turn? No, right? Like, I mean, especially your Rezael, you can bulk up pretty well to the point where, like, you're not really in any danger. So you're just kind of decreasing your power lines here by an extra 5k on the Vanguard, which, you know, doesn't sound like a lot, but in the long run, it does end up mattering, you know, a little bit more sometimes. But swinging in the maple for a 33, gonna be proccing the dog there. Just gonna be taking that attack and, you know, creating that empty line there, so we can just call to there. We do also see that dog, the gown or whatever it's called. I personally don't think that's a good inclusion for Rezael. You have the aerial sage. I don't think you need that much more counter charge. Also, that card is another example of what I like to call fake counter charge, which is the skill that lets you counter charge, but you're not actually able to counter charge unless you actually counter blast before it. So it's more like a refund instead of just a counter charge. But anyway, swinging in the Vanguard for 41, a pretty decently big number here. We did also waste the dog skill there. Another reason why I don't like it is because you have to boost with it. And as you just saw, it makes your lines just a little bit awkward because, you know, the skill isn't online. It doesn't even get 5k until you use Rezael's skill to call something. So what are you doing with that dog? Like, you don't need it in the deck. But still, swinging this pretty powerful 41. Theoretically, we could take this. I mean, we're facing down 3 drive checks. We only died to double crit, but honestly, you probably just PG this if you have it, just to be safe. Like, if you want to take a drive check attack, you take the Gabuelis and kind of hope that it just doesn't have a bunch of crits. But it looks like we're actually going to throw down the Overture, which, you know, is just about as good as a perfect guard in this situation, because that is going to be a 3 to pass. We do see 1 critical trigger being flipped here, and looks like we're going to give all effects to the Cadwalla. I think maybe you give it to the Gabuelis instead, just because of a little bit more pressure. Or you could even just do power to the Cadwalla, crit to the Gabuelis, kind of just like ensure that they can't just eat a free damage, because, like, obviously if you're swinging in this Gabuelis, it's not and even if it gets a crit on its drive check, it's not threatening lethal. But if you put a crit on it, then it is threatening lethal, potentially. But looks like we're taking that damage from the Gabuelis. Also, I'm a complete idiot and didn't realize that Gabuelis doesn't have any drive checks because, you know, 1, we're not at 4 damage, and 2, we don't even have any fucking counter blast. But anyway, swinging in that Cadwalla for the lethal swing there. Pretty big, but, you know, Rezael, you have enough shield to go for days. As we are going to be using both the Cadwalla and the Sailgown skill there. Checking the top 3 cards of the deck. Looks like we're actually going to be whiffing 3 triggers, which, you know, is something that definitely does happen quite a bit with Cadwalla. Alright, so moving on to the Hikari players' turn. Looks like, of course, we do have that Vita. We did see it earlier, so, you know, naturally we're just going to Persona right into it. Personally, I think that Hikari is much better suited. I think they've done their setup a little bit better here, as looks like we're going to go ahead and proc the Divine skill here for... Is it just going to be 2? That's a little disappointing. Yeah, I guess we're going to Divine skill for 2. which is, you know, objectively better than, you know, the other Rezael's Divine Skill, but still, you would prefer to at least, you know, return 3 cards, but I think in this situation, you're perfectly fine, just proccing the Divine Skill. You are at 4 damage, so things are a little bit risky for you. You're going to potentially get another Persona Ride turn, and assuming you push them to 4 damage on this next turn, you do have to worry about those 3 drive checks. So, you know, it definitely makes sense to, like, it's better safe than sorry. So it looks like we are going to be pushing up the starter. Like I said, sometimes Rezael does have problems getting good rear guards, as we're just going to swing in 16, which is, you know, it's better than nothing. At least we're on Persona and it's calling it down like a 5k guard. And then we're going to be swinging this Gabuelis for 28, because it still does get an extra 5k when it attacks, even if it wasn't called off of Rezael's skill. Calling down that front trigger, so kind of unfortunate that we just base agent calling out 5k guards from our opponent. As we swing in with the Rezael here, going to be counterblasting the 1 and then calling 2 cards here. Looks like we're thinking about doing a Biscotti here. Maybe not, because we are still on Persona Ride, so theoretically, like, stacking the top of your deck is not the end of the world. The one issue is that, like, what if you see 3 triggers on the top and you have to put like 2 of them back? A little unfortunate there, but, you know, it's fine. Looks like Noberis is definitely another good call here. I think we create like a Gabuelis plus Cellgown line in the other column. Yeah, we do have the Noberis who's getting an extra 10k, and then after retiring those units, we're going to continue with the Rezael skill to put the Rezael into Soul, and then call out the Gabuelis that we just retired in order to give everything 5k power here. And then we're also going to be using the Gabuelis skill here to Soul Blast 1, checking the top card of the deck. So we're just going to leave it on top as we, you know, just putting all those extra placements. Drive checking here is going to be, what did we see off the top? It was a critical trigger. So what I think we can do here, since it was PG'd, we should probably just put power and crit onto Gabuelis so it threatens lethal, but looks like we're not going to do that. Well, we're actually putting the power on the Noberis, and we are going to be putting the crit on the Gabuelis here, as we're going to go ahead and swing in for a pretty big 51 here, getting that extra 10k with his skill since we are at 4 damage. And then, of course, Gabuelis is going to be PG'd, as we see just another Biscotti off the top there, the drive check. So now what I think we do here is we just swing in the Noberis in at that Gabuelis. Like, for one, you're denying them counterblast, and yeah, sure, they have the aerial stage there, but more importantly, what it does is that it keeps them out of limit break, meaning they can't use the Gabuelis skill here. But we are just unfortunately going to be swinging in at the Vanguard instead for that 43. I know it's a really big number, so it's really tempting to, like, not to swing into the Vanguard. But unfortunately, we did give our opponent limit break there, as well as a free counterblast. So, you know, probably not the greatest play there, but, you know, we have to live with the choices we make. Anyways, we did actually hit a Vita into the damage zone, so that is kind of notable. It means that potentially there's only like 3 more Persona Rides, as it looks like we don't actually have one of them, as we're going to be skipping straight to the main phase, calling out that Noberis to the rearguard circle. Not really looking like the best lineup here. Like, the Noberis isn't even hitting at this instance, so we're gonna actually call a Blade Feather Dragon here, swinging in at the Vanguard for a very pitiful 14. But hey, it's a card out of the hand, or maybe not, considering that we guarded with the Biscotti. As we're gonna go ahead and use the Blade Feather Dragon here, and it looks like we're gonna be giving the power to the Aerial Sage, which is kind of questionable, considering that, you know, Aerial Sage already gets 2k by itself. Like, if you use a skill, I think you probably should just put the 2k on the other column. Like, give it to the dog. Like, the dog could definitely use it. If you call something else, that makes him, he's already a 13k booster, so if you just give him an extra 2k, that makes him a 15k booster, which is perfect magic numbers if you want to recall out that Gabuelis, assuming you have one in the drop zone. That'll make a very nice magic number there. Looks like we're actually going to be counting triggers here, because theoretically speaking, if we take this swing, well, if we take the swing, obviously we have to guard everything else. So we're kind of just checking to verify, because there are 3 drive checks incoming, and being able to take one of them would be very advantageous. But it looks like it's not going to end up mattering, as we do actually see a trigger off the top, and it ends up being a heal trigger, as we just heal down, swing in this Rezael for what was that, 28, 38. Yeah, because actually it's not 38, it's 33, because they have only one Rezael, because they soul blasted out one of them. Anyways, gonna be calling out actually it should be 35, because the random ass is like plus 2k, and I think we are gonna counter charge here in just a minute. But of course, calling out the Noberis to the other column, and then calling the Selgown Gabuelis column there, pretty typical things here. As we are going to actually leave the card on top, meaning Gabuelis isn't going to be getting an extra 5k. We do see a little bit of a mistake there, where we do add the extra 5k, but you only do get the 5k if you decide to put it on the bottom of the deck. So as I said, we are going to be seeing the Aerial Sage being used here. A little late, but we're still guarding. But it looks like we're going for a 3-card guard there. That's, what is that, 45k shield, as we do see a front trigger off the top there, swinging in the Gabuelis for a massive 56 here. Now being able to use its skill, getting all the extra power from these skills is going to make it just like absolutely massive, and with a drive check is going to be making this a very threatening swing, potentially lethal if we do actually hit a critical trigger off of this drive check. So it looks like we are just going to be committing the perfect guard, kind of just making sure nothing bad happens from there. We don't see anything off of the drive check, so our last attack is just going to be that Noberis there, swing in at the Vanguard for a pretty decent number, 48. And looks like since it can't kill, we're just going to go ahead and take out the Gabuelis, which I always say is, perfectly fine, method or strategy, because, like I said, and we've been seeing throughout this game, Rezael is not always, doesn't always have the easiest time calling those rares. I feel like I've said that like 3 times in this game already, but as you guys can see, this game has been going on for like 20 minutes already. And I'm already starting to get sick of it, so I don't know, what can I do to spice things up? I don't know. Look, he had to push up his booster because he didn't have a better attacker. Look, it's another Noberis. Look, there's 2 Aerial Sages on the board. Okay, whoop-de-doo. Anyways, swinging in 18k at the Vanguard, which is, better than at least the 16k from last turn. That's calling down like a 10k guard. Probably like a 15 in all honesty, but looks like we're thinking about taking it, and we are going to take it. And is that another Vita into the damage zone? That's pretty unfortunate. I guess you're not Persona riding anymore this game. But Noberis going to be swinging in, guarding that one. We are at 5, so, we kind of do have to start guarding. But, easy guards here. As you swing in for the Rezael, calling the 2 units and putting the extra Rezael in is going to boost us up to a total of 51. Just that power scaling on the Vanguard is kind of insane here, as we do see the Gabuelis called, as well as the Selgown. Looks like, do we have another Noberis in the drop zone yet? We might have to retire the one there. If we're trying to push here, which is kind of definitely what I think you have to do here, because like your opponent's now at 5, this is a good time to push. You can definitely do it without having to like resort to a lot of things. Looks like we're once again gonna opt to not use the Biscotti, instead just calling the Noberis there, using the Gabuelis' skill. Looks like we see a PG, and we're gonna opt to just leave it on top, because you kind of want to just grind out this game a little bit further, I guess. If you really wanted to be risky, you could just bot deck that PG, and then, kind of hope to close things out here, have a better chance of hitting a trigger on your next couple of checks. But we don't actually see anything, so it's not going to matter. But at least we got a PG. And I think we can actually see in the Akina player's hand is he actually ended up drawing all 4 of his PGs. If you remember, he used 2 of them last turn. And we just saw the Elementaria come out. Looks like we're going for 53 here off the Gabuelis. Hitting a front trigger there is going to be pretty big, making this number 53, but it's going to be just met with that final PG, leaving the Akina player with just 1 card left in hand. Looks like it's a Valtrosa. So, potentially we can make a pretty decent attack on this first one. We still have the Selgan, we still have the Gabuelis. We've got a booster, so we can just call that Valtros and probably not even use its skill, because we do, kind of do need counterblast. Probably should have used that dog during the last turn. We would have had one extra counterblast, and we maybe could even use this Valtrosa skill here. But we didn't, so we can't. So anyways, we've got a decent lineup here. We don't have Persona Ride, but drive checks are still drive checks, so we're just gonna be swinging in here. Both the Selgan and Gabuelis getting an extra 5k is going to make this a pretty powerful column, but looks like we're gonna realize that that column is actually pretty powerful and just go ahead and swing in with the Valtrosa boosted. Once again, deciding to not use the skill of the dog, because guess what, you just boosted with it, so you can't use its skill. So that's just a 10k guard. Hikari players not really with the healthiest hand. Like, yeah, we have the PG, so we probably just PG the Vanguard. Not a huge deal, but looks like we're just gonna go ahead and commit the 15k guard as we do swing in with the Gabuelis for a 31. Yeah, I think that definitely taking this attack is the correct play there. We do actually get a defensive there, so it makes the rest of these attacks that much more livable, as we are going to be swinging in with the Rezael for only 31. Oh, these numbers are pretty sad. Like, this is not what a Rezael is supposed to look like. Like, you saw the other one. That's what it's supposed to look like. As we call just the Noberis and the Selgan to that column. And this is unfortunate where I do have to mention that while I was recording this game, my camera actually overheated, so really sorry about that. We didn't get the rest of the match in this video, but I will tell you the result. The Akina player does actually end up winning on this exact turn. I don't quite remember what happened, but that's what happened. Anyways, that's the end of the match, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do all those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.